But the soul is something different. But we know a little bit better. We know people who were that person, and somehow that they got something wrong with them. Their brain started to go away. I know a very dear person whose brain is going away, and the soul is going away with that brain. And it's very sad for me. And so I started to think about, reading a little bit more. We're starting to know that these things are interconnected, and that somehow, like this philosopher Roger Scruton said, our bodies are the incarnation of us. They are what's made manifest. So there's something that is interwoven, so interwoven between the physical embodiment, and that's when, as a figurative artist, that's what I show people, is the physical embodiment of your soul. There's something so interwoven that in our worst self, when I'm hungry and I can't paint and I'm so tired and I throw the brush across the canvas and I do all kinds of things, that's not when my body and soul are in sync. But at our very best selves, that synchronicity takes place and we become extraordinary. We have the physical, the artist, the muse, the person doing business, the person thinking about something else, the doctor, the lawyer, the passion philanthropist, where that body and soul, where everything's working, is in sync, and not just in sync, it's incandescent. And that's genius. I think that's an interesting point. So we're learning that these things are integrated, and that art and life and soul and body are integrated. And then we learn things that are better, not just things about being, but we learn from our lizard brain, through beauty, through art, but also that our best selves come in moments of consolation. There are ideas of how we can reach a hand out. They come in ways of compassion, which means that we can relate to other people. And I think these are other emblems of self. These are things that say, when we're community together, when we're having compassion, or we're leading each other along the path in life, that sort of compassion is what makes us human. It makes us not just the animal, not the person that was looking at a woman or Venus and just seeing boobs and butts and Boo Girl like that too, which I like Boo Girl. Nonetheless, that was a primal thing, and this right here is something deeper, compassion. And I think this is important on 9/11 because we need to learn to have a compassion for loving for people. But there was something in the 19th century, we talk about, I'll put my cute cards down a second. It's interesting because we're all gathered in the 19th century, we're gathered here, and this is this product, the New Britain Museum Art, is very much a product of the 19th century in its nascent days. In its nascent days, they had the Fortune 500 companies all sprinkled out in those warehouses where people have lofts, apartments, and stuff. And what they thought in the beginning was, we're artists, we really want people to like art, so they started to sell beauty as pragmatism. And I want to take a pause a little bit because they thought, well, if I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to sell something that I need to make the most beautiful lace, and that's going to help us compete with Europe. We know that that's very different today, how manufacturers do it. But people thought beauty was pragmatic. And that was really an American ideal, and I think they formed the New Britain Museum of Art, and we're all glad they're having cheese cubes, is because somebody thought that having a museum like this was good for you. And it was not just good for you, it was good for you making money, and making money was providing for your family, and providing for your family was letting them go to college and getting a better life. So somehow they thought, at least, art was woven into the fabric of these things. But the thing is if we came along, and there's other people who didn't agree with this. This is a very American pragmatic idea. There were people who thought about art and beauty in a more disinterested way. In the 18th century, Immanuel Kant thought about art. You were disinterested in art. If art had a pragmatic use, a knife, if it was a beautiful cabinet, if it was a beautiful, saddle in Texas or whatever, our boots we were talking about. I heard there's somebody who has cute red boots in here. So, that was a beautiful thing. But if we thought about the use of it, it wasn't art anymore. We had to be disinterested. We had to start, and this was a very sticky idea. It was art for art's sake, which Leighton did, and we see some of this in the aesthetic movement. It was also very appealing to modernism. Modernism liked this idea. There was this idea the word is called autotelism, and if anyone knows it's a really great word you can use in Scrabble. But autotelism simply meant that art had no didactic purpose. It just was contemplating. You could look at a Donald Judd and just look and contemplate its form, and you could look at a Brancusi and think about its head, or you could even look at something like a flower and not really be that caring where the beauty came from. You could just enjoy it. That's appealing, and I think that that's a start to understanding beauty. And I started to understand beauty too that way because this composition we look at is sort of, it's a pediment. I'm thinking form. I'm thinking this overarching idea within. I like classicism, so things that are geometric, that flow. And then when I was doing this painting, I made sure that the lines, that this pointed here, that this related here across. And I did this elaborate, if you look at M.C. Escher, everybody should see that show after, you could see his underpinnings of the artwork, which were grids. And mine is very much related to grids and triangles, and I did this sort of formal analysis. So I appreciate the idea of being able to step back and just like things. I think it's important not to be afraid of that. But I want to say something about me as an artist, because I was also kind of skeptical of that at the time. I didn't like being disinterested. Beauty to me, it didn't have a pragmatic sense. It wasn't like I was going to make a really beautiful thing just because I'm going to sell it. But it had things that resonated with me that were maybe not practical, but essential. And those essential things, what I wanted to do with art in the beginning was I wanted to react with it. I didn't want to just put it aside and worship it like that, although we can do that with me after the show, if you want to. Anyway, what it did is I wanted to act with the beauty. But the other thing I really wanted to do is it became, and the more I like beauty, it's like, I know that about some of my students, is they don't just want to react with it, they want to imbibe it. They want it to be, there's a synesthesia that happens. I feel it in my bones, and I want to embrace it, and I want it to be something more than just an ordinary experience. And that has a use value. That's not disinterest. That's not like I don't care, I don't care, it's whatever. It's not ivory tower, that's you. It's who you are and interacting. And what we also want to do with art is we want to use art to recall things, which is an active thing. We're in this museum looking at paintings, in my painting in particular, that becomes a symbol for something else, and we recall it. I was there that day, I experienced beauty that day, that was very important to me that day. And so the memory of this couched and melted into those other ideas of blue sky on the day that was 9/11, that sort of memory, the recollection, art as recollection, art as memory, art as being, art as interaction, art as feeling, are not disinterested things. They're not an art of passivity. They're an art of activity. And finally, what I realized is that this, despite all of the iPods and nanopods and Androids and all sorts of little things and iPads and my pads and your pads, your pad is really better than mine, especially when I have to pay for hotel rooms. The most wonderful thing about it is this commitment. And I will tell you, this painting was a lot of work. Now, it doesn't look, it looks effortless. I know it looks like I just did it with one big brush. I didn't do it that way, I swear. And I talk about this because I painted this painting with a brush that started about this big, and then I painted one that was a little bit. And I really got after this. I'll tell you that this little part I painted, and that was commitment of 4 years of work. I painted this, and I actually repainted this and that numerous times to get it the right thing. Commitment says something very different in a world that's fast. And I have students at the New York Academy, Grand Central Academy, and places where I teach, that will spend a month on a year of Michelangelo's David.